Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Lost in Criterion. I'm John Patrick Owatari Dorgan, and with me today is a man who sleeps with an iguana every night.
I am the Adam Glass, and that iguana, see, you say it like it's an innuendo, so I want to...
Really? I was not intending it. That was not my intention.
Listen, okay, intention beyond, alright? Death of the author, everything. It's how it's received.
I'm not dead.
Not how you intended.
Also, I didn't write it.
Okay, that wasn't a threat. All right, I don't want you to think that was.
Pat, if you use any more innuendo, I'm going to stab you with my tripod knife.
Oh man! Spoiler warning. Thanks.
Yeah, in the podcast about the movie, I think it's probably okay.
All right. Well, as Pat has
ruined
already
the movie,
ruined everything. This week we're talking about Michael Powell's Peeping Tom from 1960. Actually, recorded in 1959. I think it was released in 1960, though. Sort of a proto-slasher film, along with Psycho, which came out a couple months later. Yeah, a couple months later.
Oh, really?
Because
so this is pre-Psycho
as well. Yeah, this is pre-Psycho. But yeah. Michael Powell, who co-directed The Red Shoes, which we really loved. This movie ruined his career.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Like, not because it's a bad movie, but I can see this as a career ruiner.
Yeah. Well, it was, it's quite salacious for 1960. And there were a lot of insults thrown at it through reviews. Well, I was reading a Criterion essay on this, and it lists some of Powell's favorite insults that were slung at the movie. His favorite is, the only really satisfactory way to dispose of Peeping Tom would be to shovel it up and flush it swiftly down the nearest sewer. Even then the stench would remain.
Wow, so people really did not like this movie.
Someone else said it was the sickest and filthiest film he can remember seeing. And apparently, I don't have context on this, just the paragraph from this essay. But apparently, one reviewer just responded, "Ugh."
Really? I mean, I guess I can see that for the time period, but I didn't. Did you find it I can't speak English.
No.
This is a problem.
I didn't. I really enjoyed this movie.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say. It's not as good as Psycho, I guess. But it's really good.
Yeah. Well, I'd say that it's interesting that this movie got such bad reviews. And I don't know that Psycho had bad reviews when it initially came out. But even without Psycho, even this existing in a world pre-Psycho, Hitchcock was doing similar things.
Right, and I don't think
similar
this is
themes and similar ideas.
And I don't think Hitchcock was the only one. B films had these kind of things in them, didn't they?
Yeah. So I don't feel this film all that. With the exception that I guess it opens with him killing a prostitute and he shoots softcore porn pictures. I guess that's. I don't know.
No, I don't know. Even know. Yeah, I don't understand the negative reaction.
It's weird that this got such a negative reaction. I don't know. They're British.
It's pretty good. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, that's one thing about this movie is that it kind of, it's kind of in a lot of ways it's a commentary on British film too. So there's the high end of British film, as he's the filmographer, or the focus guy for a movie at a major studio. And in his night job, he has these pornographic pictures, and also in his spare time, he kills people.
Well, yeah, but I don't know if that's that's commentary on the British film industry.
Well, given that he's doing it to shoot a documentary, ostensibly, and also our opening sequence, which is wonderful, the very first murder is completely shot in first person.
Right, and that's interesting.
We see the video from him, so it's with him as it makes the audience the murderer in the first sequence. We talk in Salo about the use of first person in that final sequence as putting the audience in the place of the perpetrators,
right.
and I think that this is trying to do the same thing.
This is
and whenever
not
you
horrific
use first person, it does that
nearly the same way.
It's yeah, of course. Salo takes it completely beyond the pale. But at the same time, I think this puts the audience in the shoes of our villain protagonist.
That was nice,
and he's a very sympathetic character. Despite being a murderer.
Yeah, he's a murderer, but he's a loon. So I mean, you don't feel like at the end. You don't feel like, man, they gotta give him the chair. You feel like more like, man, this guy needs some serious psychiatric help.
Yes, he absolutely needs serious psychiatric help, and he knows that. And the fact that he knows that, and he knows what he does is wrong, and he still feels compelled to do it, makes him a sympathetic character. And I think, in a way, exploring that theme of things might be, again, where critics have a problem with it.
I can see that, but that's a great theme, and not one that you actually see very often even now, I don't feel like.
Yeah.
Like, you do. You'll see nods to it in your blockbuster movies, but most of the time, it's like, oh, our character has a weakness. That makes him even better.
Well, a lot of even modern horror movies will be our villain is somewhat misunderstood.
Oh well, I mean, I don't watch modern horror movies.
Jason comes from an abusive childhood, and so it's,
but I mean, I guess
everywhere.
Yeah,
but the hints of it are never.
Right. Well, but I mean, there's a vast
the Friday the 13th
between
movies are not about Jason
and Jason, right? I mean, like,
yes,
this guy, you can watch him struggling against his nature.
Yeah,
he does not want to be what he is, and that's what makes him sympathetic. Whereas, I've never seen a Jason movie, thank God, but from what I know of it, I don't get the impression that there's a lot of internal struggle going on there.
Yeah. He's also constantly expecting to be caught, but never willing to turn himself in, which is that pulls us back from that total sympathy, I think, because he knows he's compelled, but he also doesn't want the police to stop him.
Well, and that's but then again, that along with we get that as part of his weird psychological makeup, right? Because he can't turn himself in until he completes his documentary.
Yeah, exactly.
He's also completely obsessed with finishing.
Yes.
And so you almost he doesn't come out and say it, but you get the impression that, like, once he's finished, maybe he would, but he can't finish because he's never going to be satisfied. So,
well, yeah, and that's the end of the movie, right? Is his de facto ending the documentary, since he didn't get the shots he needed, is to film himself running into his weapon. So he doesn't. But I guess ultimately the point of it is the point of his documentary, the film within the film, I guess, is to discover real fear, real primal fear. Not just a fear so bad that it's a face that the police detectives have never seen before. And in that regard, he. One of his last words is, "Helen, I'm afraid. I'm glad I'm afraid." Before he stabs himself, and she tries to stop him, and blah blah blah. And then he says, "Helen, I'm afraid. I'm glad I'm afraid." He kills himself, and then a voiceover from his father on one of the recorded tapes says, "Don't be a silly boy. There's nothing to be afraid of."
Yeah.
Which Yeah. No, this is a really well-crafted movie.
It is. The only thing that falls apart, doesn't fall apart, I don't want to say the words fall apart. The only thing I had trouble understanding is his compulsions, which is, understandable considering I'm not a lunatic. But, no, I understand why I understand, sort of, but I also don't understand. Like, what made him into a peeping Tom? The having lizards thrown into his bed? Like, because it seemed like his father was trying to craft a psychopath.
But, part of his research. Off, I think his father was trying to craft a psychopath as part of his research. But on top of that, I think, at the same time, he's trying to be like his father, and we get that reveal.
Okay, yeah, he videotapes them.
Where he's audio taping, at least. He says that every room in the house is bugged.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I meant that we also see his father's videotapes of, like, random people making out in the park and stuff. And so I guess it makes sense.
So his father has those same compulsions, too, I think. Unfortunately, he has a captive victim.
Right. Well, but that's a whole nother affair because, like, his father's obsessed with documenting fear as well.
Yes.
But doesn't go as far.
Yes.
But at the same time builds a person who's willing to go as far. That's weird.
In a way he's completing his father's research, and is there any motivation more innate in human nature than a son wanting to make his father proud?
Right. It does make sense. It's just, it's weird, the sort of psychological structure that gets built by, because we see some severe craziness in what his father does, but we don't, in my opinion, see enough of it. I don't fully buy into the amount of crazy he turns out to be. Until really, I guess, at the very end when he's talking about a whole house was bugged and stuff like that. And then I could kind of more buy it a little bit. But earlier, it's not... his father scares him, but...
I think the structure of the film wants us to not fully understand him until that last...
That may be true,
last meeting. And in that regard, I think we get enough hints at it through the movie, with talking about his dad and in as much as he's the protagonist, Helen is our viewpoint character because we only learn about him through what he tells Helen.
Right.
Even as we follow him around, we see him do all these things. We see him commit the murders, but we only learn about his background.
Right. We don't find out why. Yeah. Except for through Helen. Yeah, I mean, it's true, and I this is nitpicking at best. I mean, like, it's great, and so I would have liked his dad to be more crazy,
maybe,
so that or more extreme in his research, so that I feel more comfortable with the kind of crazy that he turned out to be.
I don't know. I think turning lights on and a camera on in the middle of the night and throwing a lizard into your son's bed.
It's great. Don't get me wrong.
Extreme.
But it's a leap though from that to stabbing people in the neck with a mirror.
That's enough to get yourself arrested in today's.
That's true.
Today's world.
Listen, I'm not arguing that his dad is not insane. Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm just arguing that I would have liked his dad if this had been made more recently. His dad would have been 10 notches more crazy.
Well, yeah,
but I mean that's what I'm.
The ramp up of,
and I don't feel that 10 levels crazier would have been good, but even like 10 years later, he would have been just a couple notches more extreme in his research, enough to make me feel more comfortable with the way the main character behaves. But I guess maybe we don't want to be comfortable with the way he turns out. Like, he's crazy and he's a bad person, so.
I think what could have helped with where you're going is if the conversation with the psychiatrist who is familiar with his father's work and talks with respect about Mark's dad. I think if that conversation had gone a little differently and he had said something to the extent of, oh, he did some great research until the end or something like
right,
that.
Yeah, something that makes him sound a little bit more of a nut job.
Yeah. Yeah, implying in some way that what he ended up doing was beyond
right, yeah,
acceptable.
like maybe some sort of right up until he was kicked out of this, the blah 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 society or something like that. Yeah,
but the fact that we see what his father has done as part of his research, and yet he still is portrayed as a well-respected member
right.
Of
Like did he document
community.
his research in all those books? Like you have to, right? Like to publish. Did he mention like terrorizing his child?
Yeah.
It was a different time when terrorizing your children was okay.
Hooray!
No, I mean, but yeah, that is a minor thing for me. I mean, like the story and the way it unfolds is great. I just would have liked to, know that his father was a little bit crazier than he is, because, or at least imply that we're even steps further than what was recorded on video that we saw.
Yeah. I think that would have. You're right, and that would have helped. I don't necessarily need that, but I can see.
Well, to make the character more believable for me. But no, his actions otherwise, he does a great job of portraying a total nut job. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
And
he's becoming he becomes worse and worse throughout the film, obviously. He knows that the police are following him when he commits that last murder. And yet he still commits that last murder. And so he knows throughout the film that he's sloppy. But he doesn't do anything to make himself less sloppy.
The thing about that is that his goal is not to commit the perfect murder. Yeah, his goal is to make his documentary.
Yeah.
To the point where it really just, we have a classic case of, boy, aren't police dumb in this film. Yes. But, I mean, that happens, right? Because, like, if they weren't dumb in this film, he would have been caught before number 2. I
think it also drives home that forensics in 1960s were quite a bit different than what they were today.
But I mean, like, man, like, you're not even going to question the guy with the camera who follows people around, like, recording the video, the murder scene. Like, there's never, like, in 1960s police, there's no, all right, guys, let's patrol around the scene a little bit and see if there's any weirdos hanging about.
Yeah. Well, they do start to interview everyone who had access to the set, which is good. But at the same time, they try to be unobtrusive as possible to the movie theater.
I know, it's so
they find this body there, and they don't close the set. They
the film's
do their initial investigation, and then the film goes on.
I mean, like, it's fun and it's a good movie. Although it does suffer from that classic thing that I'm not a huge fan of, which is, wow, look at these police officers suck at their job. I like it when the police officers are portrayed as capable and still can't catch, rather than Benny Hill-esque characters who bubble around.
There's certainly worse police in the world.
And this is not the worst case. This is not nearly the worst case of this in a film. Well, as you recall, we did watch...
There are things these guys should have done.
What was it? Silence of the Lambs, okay?
Yes.
Which is probably one of the worst cases of... I think I put my shoes on the wrong feet, Fred. Well, you better go home and change them instead of catching the criminal.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, also in Silence of the Lambs and in this, for the sake of the narrative, the police can't be hyper-competent.
Right. Silence of the Lambs is still my favorite example, because it's, my God. But, this is not that bad. Yeah. And you do see certain levels of competence. It's just, And like I said, again, I'm nitpicking because I don't have a lot of negative things to say about this film. In our podcast,
when he's up in the rafters,
we don't have negative things to say.
When he's up in the rafters filming them not discovering the body, but investigating the body, and he drops his pens. They all stop and look around, and they shine their flashlights around. Right. but they don't go any further in investigating
exactly. And that,
that's... If the 15 people who were there on that set, 15 police officers, I mean, there were probably only 8, but anyway, if they had spread out and actually attempted to find whatever made that noise, he would have been caught.
Right, and
halfway through the movie.
Well, I mean, he goes to the scene of the first crime.
And that's a thing they should have done.
Okay, and I understand that, like, maybe they're not hyper suspect of everybody in the area, but I think a general police rule, I mean, I've seen enough procedurals, which makes me an expert.
Yeah.
In police procedurals, at least. Not in actual police work, but in police procedurals. To know that step one is always, in a police procedural is always, okay, let's scope out all the people who are hanging around because, criminal, like, crazy people tend to come back.
Well, there is the matter that is implied to be his very first murder.
Okay, yeah.
So they don't know that and it's a dead prostitute as far as they're concerned.
Right. There's a certain nonchalance about that in general. Yeah.
Even that in that first sequence though, we see that he's very sloppy and not because he throws away that little box.
Right.
Well, it might have been a film box.
I think it was
in a
box
trash can right outside the door to her apartment. In a trash can right outside the door to his apartment.
Is the landlady a
season.
freaking moron? She can't identify him, and he's holding something we can't identify. What?
I do like, yes, and I really like in that initialness because no one seems bothered that he has the camera on him at the start, and I guess it's in his little camera bag, even though the angle of shooting implies that it's right beside his forehead. But even if it's in the camera bag, like I feel awkward with like my phone hanging out of my pocket in a manner that would suggest I'm recording something.
Yeah.
But the fact that no one questions this guy with a camera that's wearing, hanging off of his shoulder.
Right. No, yeah, and he's a film guy, so I mean, he could probably excuse it if he's questioned, but he's never questioned.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's weird.
I do like the one time he is questioned, when he shows up to film the police discovering that prostitute's body, and some guy who was talking approaches him and asks him what newspaper he's from, and he says The Observer. What a great joke, right?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the foreshadowing, or at least the I suppose irony in what he says. In the, like he says, he asks if Helen will be free tomorrow night, and he says, or Viv. He asks if Viv would be free tomorrow night, I think, and says that he hopes he will be. And then everything when he's just before his interview, when he's talking to the other guy who's sitting there about his documentary, and he's saying a lot of subtle things that the audience understands, but the characters don't.
Yeah, in a weird way, you know what that reminded me of? It doesn't remind me of a specific movie, but you know how in parodies of you're kind of really old, like I'm talking black and white horror films, there'd be a sort of Peter Lorre character. Am I thinking of the right guy? Bulging eyes. Yeah. Who like makes these really, really bad innuendos about how he's a murderer. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like, like where did I can't think of any examples, okay? But it'd be like, where did Auntie M, for the lack of better, go? And he goes, she had a long. I can't even think of an example, but you know what I'm talking about. She'd be like, she's indisposed, and then like it'll turn out that she's in a disposal or something stupid like that. You know what I'm talking about? Yes. It had that weird element to it that kind of took me out of the moment for a minute.
I guess it did.
Just a little bit, not a lot. It wasn't as bad as that. But for a few minutes there, it got very B-movie
I hope I am aside,
like, where I'm like,
I think, really.
Huh?
Yeah.
Is he really making like an innuendo about the fact that he just stabbed a lady in the throat? No. Oh well. It just had that feeling. I was waiting for him to like tap his fingers together and then like chuckle, kind of chuckle. You know,
if you catch my
meaning. Exactly. It's like I can't think of any good examples, but they're in every kind of that kind of movie, right?
Yeah. At least especially like cartoon parodies of that movie. You know, I can see Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Oh yeah, or
that sort of thing.
Exactly. And so for me, like it felt that way for just these brief seconds where I'm like, really? Did you just make that joke? We need to have a long sit down with the screenwriter who decided that was okay.
The screenwriter, actually, incidentally, since you brought him up, was a cryptographer in World War II.
He's also featured. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, after the war, he wrote some plays and a few screenplays, and this is probably his most prominent work. But he was a pretty prominent cryptographer throughout the war, which I thought was really interesting.
It is really interesting, but also
completely, unrelated.
Yeah, right. Well, also sheds a really sad light on how bad these innuendos are. If that's the best a cryptographer can do, yes. as an illusion.
But I guess, this guy, I guess when he was like 17, 18, was writing cryptography puzzles for London papers. That's how good he was. A great quote from him, and I am paraphrasing, in his autobiography, because I ended up reading a lot about him. But in his autobiography, he says, in 1942, my parents introduced me to the war in case I later accidentally found it or ran into it some way. That's like the opening line of his biography, which I thought was wonderful.
That's a good one.
But yeah, this movie also, in as much as he's the screenwriter, I think this movie reflects Michael Powell's frustration with the movie process in a way, especially with the people at the studio. Like that one studio exec makes the announcement that
we're going with the first cut if you can hear it and see it.
Yeah, everyone's using the first cut no matter what. And then of course we cut immediately to director who's going cut after cut after cut because the studio's forced him. Yeah, because the studio's forced him to use a pretty face who can't act for crap.
No, that was
another commentary.
No, yeah. There's some that element is definitely in there. You can feel it, right? Like it kind of has in that way. It kind of for me has a almost kind of Sound of Music-esque feel to it. That weird. There's some certain metadata about the movie industry in there, and that's pretty interesting. I really like the interactions between the director and the actress. And, as she attempts to faint and just does the worst job ever. In fact, it's actually pretty funny to me because probably it was very difficult for her, the actual actress, to be that poorly. Bad at her job.
Yes.
She probably had to work twice as hard to do a crap job. Which I love. I love that kind of thing, too, right? Like, the attempt of a good actor to act as a bad actor is...
Yes.
It's another level.
The director's name, by the way, Don Jarvis, is a rather unsubtle punch at a Pinewood Studios director named or executive named John Davis rather. So well, his punches at the movie industry weren't exactly
so maybe
hidden.
It's not just the film itself that ended his career. It might also be the fact that he decided to be an asshole to people he works with in a really blatant manner.
Yes. Well, but this and the Red Shoes, if you remember, were the production company is the Archers, and that's his production company. So in a way, our guy Michael Powell is he's an independent artist, or at least trying to be an independent artist, and trying to be an independent artist in a studio setting is exercising futility,
right, especially
in a lot of ways.
In this time and place. Yeah, he still needs their release connections and all that stuff. He can't do anything on his own, really. I mean, he can pay for it, which is what he does. But then after that, it could just sit in a vault forever. Yeah.
And apparently that's what it did. The distribution company sold it to what Michael Powell called a black market distributor. And it sat for years and years and years. And the Scorsese really loved it. And Scorsese really loves Powell films. I think we talked about The Red Shoes being one of his favorite movies. But he got the New York Film Festival to show it, and then it was a cult movie for 20 years. And then the Criterion released, I think, was in 94. I think they put it out on DVD, and that was one of the first wide releases of the movie period.
Interesting. That's fascinating because it's a pretty good movie. I mean, like, it's not...
Yeah, it was just buried when it came out.
It happens, I guess.
And not even, a lot of cult movies we think about, they just didn't catch on when they came out. Well, this was actively, panned and kind of...
Well, it's really... Yeah, we come back to the fact that, like, I can understand why the studio would be against it. But I cannot understand why the critics are against it.
And I can't really understand why an audience didn't grab onto it.
Well, I can see a 1960 audience maybe not thinking this is all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he's sympathetic, but he's really weird.
Well, I guess in a way, this is... Britain pop culture is really weird in that it's real. There's a lot of really high art and there's a lot of really low art and there's not a lot of middle ground. And this is
this is firmly in the middle. Yeah,
this is firmly in the center. Trying it has allusions to the high art and it it goes through a lot of the cinematic conventions but it's also about a guy who kills a prostitute and takes naughty pictures.
Well, I was kind of wondering if this is also, we get down to the same reason that Hitchcock left Britain. Maybe. In that, like, movies were still seen as second-class entertainment.
Yeah.
Whereas in the United States, it was the greatest thing ever, right? And
movies were...
Right.
Boom.
And so I wonder if that's part of what we're seeing here is that, like, he produced pretty good art in a setting where people who went to the movies wanted just jokes and goofing around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And action and
the movie has
an intense psychological experience.
Yeah. In America, film became a replacement for the theater, and in a lot of ways, in Britain, film became a replacement for the music hall.
Right, or even like the low rent theater, where the penny theater or something like that, or vaudeville or something like that.
Yeah. So, anyway, I like.
Yeah, I did too. Like I said, I was trying to nitpick because I wanted the podcast to be more than 15 minutes long.
You want. Exactly. No, but I really think, I mentioned this earlier, I really think that in the regard of what we've just been talking about, that even the way this is shot is a commentary on film, and the fact that he is a filmmaker who, is obsessed with beautiful women, and he's obsessed with making beautiful women scream.
Yeah.
And I think that is in itself a commentary on the film industry.
Yeah, I can see that.
Not nothing deeper. So as a movie about movies, this is one of the better ones I've seen.
Yeah.
It's certainly not as pretentious as the average film about film.
Right. Well, but that may be because
he
just got to it earlier.
Yes. Well, yeah. The ones that come out today are really navel gazing quite often. So,
well, a couple things that I wanted to comment on. Basically one thing I wanted to comment on. I was really impressed by the music of this. Like first of all, there's some really good use of diegetic music, right? Where like she turns down her radio and our music drops off. But like somehow, I don't know, like even when the music was not diegetic, which I think I'm using the right word there, I hope I am. It still felt kind of that way to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like he would be in his he's watching his films, and even though I know they are silent, it felt like they were part of the film. And that might have to do with like some of the way the movie they timed it, like when he would slip. I don't remember, okay, exactly. But I feel like sometimes when he switched off the film, the music would also stop or change. And it wasn't meant to be music on the film because these are silent, obviously. Yes. But it still felt that way. And I don't know. The music was really good for me. I don't know. It was just really atmospheric for me.
That's true. And one of my favorite scenes as far as the soundtrack tying in, and it's not a diegetic use of music at all, but when Mrs. Stevens meets Mark and is talking to him about his work and at least is implying that she knows something's up, even though she may not know exactly what is up, the soundtrack gets this bassy heartbeat as he gets more and more nervous. And that was one of my favorite uses. But yeah, the diegetic use is great, and that is the right word. Okay,
well, I was like, I'm going to use this word, but I can't remember if I'm right. But even beyond that, just the music in general really sold the scenes for me.
Yeah, I really like his use of film, the word film, as innuendo when he talks to Mrs. Stevens that second time, where she breaks into his room, and he swears that he'll never film Helen.
Oh yeah, that's good.
They don't have to worry about him filming Helen because he likes her too much, and he'd never hurt her. So there's no reason for them to move or him to move. Which again drives home what I think of, him as another commentary on film, a meta commentary on film. That him filming Helen would be very bad.
Yeah, that like filming is basically tantamount to murdering or killing.
Yes, murdering. Yeah. And I think, how can I segue into this? I think to that extent, and the fact that he is a male protagonist and all of his victims are women that he's trying to scare to death. Well, not necessarily scare to death, but scare a lot as he kills them.
I think he is honestly trying to scare to death. Like, if he could kill them without stabbing them, he would.
Yeah. I think you know what
I mean, though, right? Like, he's got the mirror, he's got all this stuff. His goal is to scare to death. He just can't do it because it's basically impossible.
Yes. His ultimate, what he would love to do.
His dream is to capture the fear of the actual fear so strong that it causes you to die.
But I think what I'm getting at is I think that even that is the commentary on the male gaze in film, and and this is before that even became really feminist criticism of film was hardly in its own in 1960.
No, did it even exist yet?
I don't think so. So not as what it would be in coming years. So. Yeah, that.
Well, and there's and in general, there is some. Yeah, there's a lot of overt sexuality to, not just him taking pictures of nearly naked women, but also just his very actions are that way. They are rape in all but name. Yeah,
and the idea that this is what we want. Not only through the first person use of camera, but through other characters. Like the somewhat aristocratic man coming in to buy papers and then leaving without the papers when he buys the naughty pictures.
The papers.
Yeah. Yes. That they put in an educational.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Educational bag. Books.
Yes. Because why would you label the bag with what's in it?
Yeah, I don't. It's absurd, right? Like exactly. It's like, couldn't you just leave it blank?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think in a way this is a really early criticism on that idea too.
Well, and then you throw in the fact that like the director's complaining about the pretty face that can't act, and again we're talking about they want a pretty face in the movie to sell the movie. It's not really essential. You know, her abilities and skills are not what's on sale here, or what's not being sold here.
Exactly. And I like that about this.
No,
movie.
there's a lot of great elements about it. I also like the fact that the police officer, when he investigates the shop that he goes to work at or whatever, he follows Mark. Says, he goes into a newsstand. Doesn't bother to check out the newsstand and find out that the place is just covered with half-naked pictures.
Yes.
Like, that might have been a clue.
I don't understand how the owner of the newsstand... he seems to be like he's doing a discreet business.
Yeah, he's like,
and the guy
which one
walks
do you
in
want? And
as
like,
if
it shows him
it's a
some
discreet
like
business.
examples, but like, there's very obviously nearly naked women all over the walls.
Yes, all over the walls. It's what is the difference between the pictures that he's actually seeing?
I think it's
and the
I think
pictures
it's nudity.
that are already
I think
posted on the wall.
It's gotta be nudity. None of the pictures on the wall.
It would have to be full nude.
None of the pictures on the wall are actually naked, from what I can tell.
Yeah. They're pinups. Yeah. I thought maybe a few of them were topless, but they're in the background, it's really hard so it's hard to tell anyway.
I'm going to assume that they are not fully nude.
Yeah.
Whereas I assume the pictures that he's showing are fully nude, but nonetheless, the police officer might have gotten a hint. He just walked inside. Oh, this guy shoots dirty pictures.
But even so, you can't necessarily jump from this guy shoots dirty pictures to this guy murders women.
Well, you can't unless you're a police officer in 1960.
I guess in 1960s Britain you could actually make that argument.
You could at least make the argument he's worth investigating. The guy who shoots naked pictures might
already has a moral...
Might have some sort of moral... Yeah. Might be morally questionable.
I don't know, though, Pat. He's not ugly. And as we know, only ugly people commit crime.
Evil. Shoot.
Yes.
Dang. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe that's why they just ignored him.
Yes.
Like, we'll investigate that guy over there. The homeless
guy.
Well,
for being a quiet, shy guy, his interactions with the police are actually... I mean, he's pretty charismatic when he interacts with
That's
people.
Weird, too. That's a little bit strange. Because...
And Viv trusting him right off, the actress who he records the dance sequence through, as a blatant move to force some choreography into this movie.
Yeah, that was weird too.
Michael Powell, the guy who wrote, the guy who shot.
Well, I did not make
shoes.
that connection before I watched it. I was like, man, there's an awful lot of dancing in a movie about a guy who murders people.
Yes,
and then now knowing that it's the guy who made the red shoes makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, it seemed odd to me that that she would so willingly trust him, but I guess he was also providing something.
Right.
That
See, that makes more sense to me than Helen.
Yeah,
because Helen just
yeah, Helen's like in love with her, in love with him. But Helen, I think with Helen, it's kind of a she's living with her mother who's blind because she feels like she has to take care of her mother. Maybe
broken, like baby bird, broken wing syndrome kind of thing going on.
Shut it. And I feel like there's one of the tapes he plays when he's showing Helen that he's been listening to everything, and it's of the other guy's room. And he's talking to a woman, and she tells him, no, we can't now. Or something like that. It's heavily implied that they're having an affair. And I feel like that might have been Helen.
Really? I didn't get that. No, I didn't get that.
I don't.
It might be, but
I can't tell from the voices. Only watching it once. I'm not necessarily familiar enough with her voice to make that jump. But if it was, and even if it wasn't, it is implied that she's kind of trapped there, and therefore going after what she can get.
Any other guy that rolls down. Yeah. No, it's just, it is weird. He does become a little bit charismatic, but
And it is that other guy, the other guy who lives there, who comes up and gets her when she brings him cake at the birthday party,
yes.
isn't it? So, yeah.
He's basically the only other guy we see.
Yeah, there is some implication of, it's subtle, but there's some implication.
There is some implication that maybe he's chasing after her or something like that.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Shoot. No, it's gone now. Oh well. Probably not important.
You should have a pen when we write.
No, we should.
Write down these
Instead
things
of a beer, maybe I
talking.
should have a pen.
Yes.
But I'm gonna stick with the beer because it makes the podcast more fun.
There you go. Pens do kind of ruin things.
Especially since I'm probably just gonna click it a lot and I'll ruin the audio. Which means I had to buy a fountain pen instead because I can't click. Then I'll make a mess. There'll be ink everywhere. Ruin the podcast. He and she is a strange combination anyway. But yeah, his interaction with Viv is the best one. Between the choreography, and also I have a question: are these women they just don't have legs that work? He doesn't drug them, but they just let him just really pan in slow on them. It's like that. It is a 3-minute stabbing when he kills you. You have enough time to go make an omelet, come back, and get stabbed.
Nervousness becomes paralyzing even before outright fear enters the equation.
But I really have a hard time believing. Now, maybe this is some other commentary that is escaping me.
Yeah.
What we're implying is that all women have their response to fear is freeze. They neither fight nor flight. They freeze.
It's their delicate sensibilities. It's
because that tripod is probably the least threatening thing in the history of the planet.
Even after he pulls the,
I know it's
the
still
cover
like
off,
a
and
1.5 inch
knife.
knife. Yeah, it's like what did you glue like an envelope opener, a letter opener to the end of this thing? I mean, it's not
stabbing them in the neck is literally the only way that could
and it's got and the aim
person.
Means that if they move at all, he'll miss. Yeah, because he's operating this thing is 3 feet away.
Yeah,
have you ever tried to poke something with a 3-foot stick that's moving? It is nearly impossible.
Yeah,
and then we're talking about a pretty small target in the neck. That did take me out. The one time that took me out, really took me out, was with Viv, because she has an entire studio at her disposal. She's not even trapped.
Yeah,
and she just lets him walk right in there.
The prostitute being on the bed in a small room. She
could have still.
Yeah, she could have fought.
It would have been that hard.
There's things she could have done.
But Viv isn't even if memory serves, she's not even backed into a corner. He stabs her middle of the set. Yeah. Which is a bit of a problem for me. Also, one more thing. Why is there no blood?
Because it's
I know, I understand that, but they don't have to show blood without talking with. It's not necessary to show blood in order to reference blood evidence. You know what I'm saying? The police are not looking for weapons with blood on them. They're not mentioned. There's no mention of blood stains or bloody footprints or.
Yeah, there's not even any mention of him cleaning up. There's no implication that he cleaned the weapon or he cleaned the floor or
in the neck. Yeah, and there's just nothing happens. They just die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's two little problems.
Bit of a problem,
which don't affect the plot of the movie, but do affect a certain bit of my enjoyment of it. Just because I remember going, Viv, come on, you just did a dance number. We know you can walk.
We know you can kick him in the face without moving.
We know a lot of things about you that imply you probably can avoid being stabbed in the neck in the middle of probably what? I'm going to say a space of 20 square feet?
No one even just slaps it and says, "Get that thing out."
What are you
my
doing?
Face. It's There's a lot of backing up, and even Viv doesn't know him, and he's spent the last 3 minutes at least being creepy.
Yeah, really,
yet she
really
still just
creepy.
stands there. Yeah, And I guess, yes, she has asked him to try to get her into this, into the scene. But there's no reason to not just think he's being creepy.
Yeah, no, and it really, maybe this is also a commentary on the state of women in the film industry at the time, and that they apparently are just, according to this film, boxes of dumb rocks.
Yes.
I mean, in that, like, neither of them makes any, at least our prostitute and Viv don't make any attempts to escape or analyze the situation. Like, creepy guy with camera takes 5 minutes to walk over to my bed and stab me in the neck. Creepy guy with camera stabs me in the middle of a set. And it's weird.
Yeah. And I think it is further commentary that the only person who does take time to analyze the situation, even the psychoanalyst doesn't take time to analyze the situation. He's just so happy to be on a film set, and he's laughing and clapping. But the only person who does take that time is Blonde.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else to say?
No, I think we covered the good points, the bad points. In the end, a good movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it is a good movie, and I don't understand how it wasn't.
No.
Yeah, given that Psycho came out months later,
and was
less than a year later.
How? Well, we don't know how Psycho was received because we've not watched it.
Listen, there's a reason that Hitchcock is Hitchcock's career was not ruined by Psycho. So
but I don't know if it was widely raved about or not.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for listening once again to Lost in Criterion. Next week we'll be talking about an Italian film, 1974's The Night Porter by Liliana Cavani, who I think is our first female director in 59 movies. Speaking of terrible use of women. Yes. Anyway, so we'll jump into that, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Lost in Criterion, a production of With Two Brains. The show is hosted by Adam Glass and John Patrick Owatari Dorgan. Jonathan Hape did the music, and Adam Glass also edited it all together. Feel free to contact us by email via lostincriterion@withtwobrains.com or join us on the web at www.lostincriterion.com.